Hey, yo, what it do, y'all? Let's get right into it. Today, I want to talk to y'all about Smith and Kitava because I realized that this Ascendancy is actually way too interesting to leave until after I get patch notes to talk about because there's so much to talk about even before with the honestly entirely unique system that they introduced for a portion of its Ascendancy. I would say even like half of its Ascendancy realistically in terms of its value. And so I want to be able to talk about that as one of its use cases, but also just to really like dig into the design of this because it's really cool to see them taking again more strides in the design of the ascendancies, as well as just quite frankly, I think that this is an insanely tanky ascendancy. Personally, not my style. Don't really like warrior, don't like maces, not the biggest fan of tanky gameplay. Doesn't mean that I can't appreciate the theory that goes into making them, and I felt like this needs to be talked about. So before I get into it, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you rock with the video, support the channel, trying to get up to 10K subs by the end of the year, help your brother out. Let's get into it. First thing we can do is we can talk about the like quotes incomplete ascendancy nodes, and I'm calling them quote unquote incomplete just because all they do is grant skills that I don't have data for. And so they're not incomplete because the nodes are incomplete. They're incomplete because I can't form a complete opinion about them because we don't know that much about the skills. Those nodes being living weapon, against the anvil, and heat of the forge. Living weapon gives us a skill called manifest weapon, which shown in the trailer does just look like anime weapon, but you don't have to like put the weapon on the ground and then animate it. It just animates the weapon you're holding, I assume. And it makes me wonder, one, is it a minion skill, right? Is it going to scale with minion stuff? Is it going to require spirit in order to use? How many weapons can I actually animate? Those are the big three questions that I have about it because it seems really cool. I just want to know more, right? Then we have against the anvil, which tempering weapon. It looked like it just causes like an infernal cry-esque explosion. I think it probably is labeled like combust or something in the data, most likely. And really, the only question I need to know is like, how long does this effect last? Like, am I gonna temper my weapon once the beginning of a map, and then for the rest of the map I'm good? Is it a thing I'm gonna have to constantly like re-up on? Like, what is the actual buff even? But that's like the major thing. It's just how much upkeep is that going to require, which we had a funny theory amongst my friends. Like, imagine, you're sitting there, it kind of looks like orange is in there. Ding, ding. Imagine you have to do that over and over and over to stack up the buff. I'm really hoping I'm wrong about this, but like, it just feels like the type of thing that would actually happen in PoE too. You know what I mean? Lastly, Heat of the Forge, which I'm just going to assume this is a meta skill for triggering specifically fire spells. I could be wrong, but again, they didn't show us, so that's just kind of what I'm assuming. Now, I need to know, what does it trigger on, right? Like, it says on hit. Can I cast a spell to cast spells? Is it going to only work with attacks? This is a very important question to me about regarding what this can actually do. Is it going to only be melee hits, or skills like Volcanic Blast going to work? Right. This is all very critical information to me. Also, does it use spirit? Like, I imagine it uses spirit, much like I imagine a living weapon uses spirit, but it's not confirmed. Then it makes me think a little bit, right? Like, maybe the distinguishing factor that's supposed to make it good is that it doesn't use spirit. Who knows? These are just questions that, like, haven't been answered yet. It's fine. We're going to get those answers eventually anyways. I'm just putting these thoughts out there so that, we get there. Now we should take a look very quickly at one of the more known quantities in this game, which is the return of Chieftain, specifically Tessalio and Valico. If you are unfamiliar with PoE 1, Coal Stoker and Fortune Flame are just reskins of Tessalio and Valico, except the unaffected by Ignite got moved out from what Coal Stoker is now into heat proofing. This is just an insane set of effects, by the way. The ability to stack fire res and get your other two resistances worked on as well through it. Very nice for a variety of specific uniques that have always just really trended high on fire resistance for Ignite or fire damage based characters. But also, Forged in Flame is just mathematically one of the most ridiculous effects to ever exist in an Ascendancy, both like in PoE 1 and in PoE 2. It just, turning the, say, 5 max res on flowing metal into 5 max all res or all elemental res resistance is ridiculous and extremely high power, and is going to make this character really tanky should you go that route against elemental hits. And then you can, shift damage over, and there's a whole lot of things you can do with it. It's going to be very potent. I expect that this will probably have close to a 95% use rate on this Ascendancy, just because of how consistently tanky it is. And now that I've laid all that groundwork, right, we have to actually talk about the thing that brought us here, the thing that even made me really want to look at this Ascendancy. Like, I have no intention of playing Smith or Kitava at all, not at the start of it. Anyways, I don't play slow melee like that, and I think warrior, I think maces, I get turned off immediately. But this Ascendancy is so fascinating to me that I might do it anyways, or I might find a way to play a different weapon type on a warrior just to play Smith and Kitava, because Smith's Masterwork is one of the coolest ideas they've ever come up with for an Ascendancy node. And it also looks extremely powerful. Smith's Masterwork, you can only use a normal body armor and it's free, but then it allows you access to all of these other nodes that improve the qualities of that quote normal body armor, right? This is important. You're using your Ascendancy to build a chest piece. And what this means to me is that you can use a one, very customizable experience, but two, more importantly, it's a really good way to get stats early, right? Like, just think about how shit your gear is at early stages of the game. Pretty sure you wouldn't really complain if your chest art piece instead said 15% increased max life, 5% regen, and some res or something, right? Like, you wouldn't really be pressed about that. So I think it's pretty cool. It's got some very nice synergistic combos with the rest of the Ascendancy or other items, things on the tree, etc., etc., right? So it's worth looking at this Ascendancy primarily through the lens of how many different ways can you utilize this Ascendancy sequence. And of course, at some point, we're going to optimize all the fun out of it as a community by coming up with our quote unquote agreed optimal use of the Ascendancy, which I still think could change on a whim just based on the constraints of the build, because are so many effects here that this Ascendancy provides that you can't get them all. And making the decision on which ones are actually valuable enough is actually quite hard, even in a more generic sense. Before we dig into the like combinations though, I want to talk a little bit more about the downside, right? Because Smith's Masterwork comes with a very, very harsh downside. You can only use a normal body armor. This is brutal in a lot of ways, right? Especially at current, Warrior Invictus is definitely the body armor of the game. Now, we do not know what's going to happen to it in the patch notes, if anything, if it's just going to be notably rarer, or if it's going to be notably weaker, or if they're going to nerf soul cores. We don't really know what is in store for Warrior Invictus to tell us if we should actually be worried about the fact that we can't use Warriors Invictus if we use Smith's Masterwork. So, not really going to drone on that part too much. But, the rare, not being able to use a rare also kind of sucks if you're trying to like actually stack armor. Let's just say armor is actually made very strong in the patch notes. It's going to kind of suck. But I think the strengths of the nodes around do help make up for this. And also, I think there's two really cool like little bits and pieces here about this Ascendancy note that I just want to call to your attention if you didn't think about this already. One of them is that you don't actually have to use a specific armor base no matter what build you're playing, right? If you can't actually roll the defenses on that base that highly, it's a lot less impactful which base you use, right? Like you think, oh man, I'm an armor character, but my armor is a regular body armor. It's a normal body armor, so it doesn't actually get the thousands of armor it gives. It's only going to have like 600-700 armor on it. And is that really worth losing my hair over instead of getting, say, a really cool implicit like a steel plate or an expert shaman mantle or sacrificial mantle, right? These implicits are so strong that they might actually be worth using weird off-stat ones that you might have to, fuck around with your stats a little bit to get on, that provide you more value in other ways while you're build-a-bitching your chest, right? You can also just corrupt the base that you want over and over once you figure out which one you like, right? You could literally just get a base, quality it, socket it, corrupt it. Bang, every time you get a base until you hit an enchant you like. Or if you just want an additional socket for like another rune or soul core or talisman, if you're allowed to put those in the chest pieces, right? Like you get a number of effects there as well that are good, like max all res and PDR. There's recoup, right? You can get there's a number of ways to actually milk extra power out of the chess piece beyond just slapping on the normal chess piece and clicking the Ascendancy nodes that I thought were worth addressing. So now I should actually talk about like using the Ascendancy, or more specifically, how I envision the Ascendancy being used. And I think the majority of the shit, this Ascendancy comes in before what I label quote in my head as like before you're like level 93. Really, it's before you've like really like progressed the game in full. And I'm talking like deep end game progression, right? The idea being that the stronger your gear gets, specifically the ability for you to invest better and better into a chess piece, whether that be getting a good unique chess piece or something like that, the worse and worse and worse this Ascendancy becomes. So, at least again, under my vision, where the skills are not worth looking at and you are mostly playing because of the body armor nodes. Could be wrong about this, but at the moment, my assumption is that the body armor nodes are the appeal and purpose of this Ascendancy. And so in the campaign, you're kind of feasting. Like you get to Balbala, you do your first Child of Sekima, you get to take 2 points of your choosing, right? Whether that be max life or get some resistances to help yourself out a little bit. 5% regen will go kind of hard at that state in the game, not gonna lie. Like you could get whatever you need at that point in the game. And you're going to find that you can do that, with the first trial of Sekima, with the first trial of Chaos, and even with your third trial overall, you might even still just be taking body armor nodes. But you could also start to think about taking Coal Stoker to start preparing yourself for the transition into Forged into Flame. Because by end game, right, you're gonna want to be Forged in Flame, again, at least in my vision, Forged in Flame, then taking the max res and fist taken as fire. And then you're going to be playing around with, life regen and fire res from the Ascendancy, whatever you need. Maybe you actually need to get support straps for the increased strength that it gives. If you're playing like Giant's Blood setup, like I had like a first concept for this that involved, say, putting on a big 2-hander with Giant's Blood so you can run Rise of the Phoenix, or like to use as a source of, regen, but also more importantly, the max fire res it gives to combine with Flowing Metal, and then just stack your fire res to the moon to use with, and a tree notable that I'm pretty sure is going to get nerfed or neutered before this patch actually hits, that gives you max fire res per overcapped fire resistance. But if it doesn't get neutered, like that's all the combination you could use to try to really quickly hit 90 all res, right? There's like a world where that's a thing. So, there's a lot of options here. There are worlds where you might even just not take the max res nodes. It's hard to believe that I'm saying that out loud, but it's possible. And so I don't want to act like it's not. It's just weird to me, right? But there's a lot of potential here. That's kind of the idea, is that this Ascendancy is something that you're supposed to play around with and get experimental with. And I think that is fucking awesome. Just straight up. That about wraps it up for me, right? Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to play this anytime soon or anything, but I wanted to get my thoughts out there. Plus, then I can revisit these thoughts once we get the patch notes. That will be on stream, though. It won't be in a video, but like on stream, I'll probably revisit the thoughts with patch notes to see if any new ideas arise, because I just love things that are this interesting to play around with, right? And now, speaking of the stream, that link is in the description. I've been streaming, in the evenings for the most part, 3 to 5 days a week. I will be streaming a shit ton once the league, it's not really a league, you get what I mean. Once the patch comes around, I'll be streaming a ton of me actually playing that, so you get to see what I'm actually doing, whatever I end up doing a league start. I have not really decided yet, but you have a video there. You can also get the Discord and link in the description to come join the community chat, whatever, the deal. You also have a better idea of when I'm going live, what my stream schedule for the week looks like when it's not immediately content season. You can give me some ideas for things to talk about. Anyways, I want to know you guys' thought on this Ascendancy, especially if you made it all the way to the end. Appreciate you for that. But you gotta share with me your cooks, right? This is not just a one-way relationship of cooking. I cook, you cook, we're all in the kitchen together. Let's get it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.